Yeah, we'll leave home on time tomorrow. You must sustain for me. Mm. Well, bring your school uniform. Let me iron it. Bring your school uniform. Let me iron it. I wonder what's taking Luke so long. Princess, Luke started
Good evening, ma. How's it doing? Thank you for joining.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, ma. Thank you very much. We'll start very soon. So let me get our.
Is the only one?
Yeah, that's the only one I saw in the laundry basket.
Obìnrin ẹjọ́ check wardrobe yìí wà bẹ́ẹ̀. Yeah. Where do you used to keep it? We are more young one. We are going out early tomorrow. Yeah. They don't do history necessary. They don't do history necessary. That is what. Yeah. History cannot get it.
SS1 poster. Good evening, all. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma. We are here this evening to talk about brain health for all ages. On Tuesday this week, going to be International Day for Brain Health, and the topic, the theme for this year is brain health for all ages. And we have in our midst a renowned neurologist, consultant physician and neurologist with Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Agawize, who is already on the call to educate us on this topic. And I pray as we join, we'll be able to gain a lot of knowledge, be able to know what to do to protect our brain, and be able to live longer and live well in good health. And so while we wait for him to get ready, I will want somebody that led in the spirit to pray for us as an opening prayer before we start. Thank you very much. Yes, we are waiting.
Eh?
You need someone to pray for us. Give us an opening prayer. Then we will start. Our lecturer is already here.
Danny.
Okay.
Yeah. And both of
You guys
them
will take the prayer.
tall.
In Jesus' name, Father, we thank you, Lord, for this evening. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege we have to gather to be able to learn about our health. Father, we pray as we do this discussion, you will guide us, you will help us to gain the knowledge we need to live better life. Thank you, Lord. We commit our lecturer. I pray you grant him the grace to speak what you have ordained for him to tell us, and be able to have a good time in this time, and be able to learn well, and be able to gain the knowledge we need. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. So we can start waiting for others to open the others will join us as we go along. So yes, sir. You have the floor, sir. You will need to unmute your audio.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, we can. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I screen on my
Yes, sir, you can, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Me, I'm Dr. Technology. A privilege of physically on platform. Sure, we end this session. I'm going to gain a lot. This topic. How is it educated? Am I audible? No? Hello, Doc. Hello, Doc. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now. You are audible
Okay.
now. It's better this way. Yes, sir.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so without wasting much time, if time is fast spent already, I'm going to be talking about health for all ages. Okay, and the this particular outline. I want to ask this question. What is the most
Hello, sir. The audio is still going on and off. Okay.
I think let me adjust my network.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think
Yes,
so.
let me just do it. Just give me some time. I'll do that. It's been fluctuating.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You can go ahead.
If you can, just count with me in your mind how many times or what time is mentioned from here.
Right. I'm back again. Just have to
Yes,
adjust
sir.
my network. Yeah, it's been fluctuating. I know that now, and I hope this stays
Yes.
this way.
Yes, it's
Okay.
better now.
All right. Let me
So you can
share
share
my
your
slide.
screen. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I asked a question previously. I said,
Yes, sir.
what's the most powerful organ in the body? Don't answer the question. I'm going to make sure that this particular presentation doesn't really take much because it's after 8 already. I mean, by God's grace, in 30 minutes, I'm going to deliver this lecture. Now, that is one thing. Do you know that the brain health is not just for the elderly, also is applicable to people of all age group? Sorry. So keep going back and forth. Now, this topic is very important for various reasons. It is important for improved learning, memory, and solving problems. Of course, it helps reduce the risk of cognitive decline and other neurodegenerative conditions. And of course, it helps in the overall well-being. Now, I want us to take a look at brain growth and development, from age 1 to age 3. First, that brain growth in children. Now, you know that within the first 3 years of life, the brain grows rapidly. In fact, the 3-year-old child or child brain is considered to be twice as active as that of an adult. Okay. Now, this is very important because of the neural connection so that children can learn certain habits, words, like reading very easily. It is very, very important at this age. And then for you to actually stimulate children to learn, social interaction with human of any age, maybe a child or an adult, is very, very key. And then as we proceed in this discussion, we'll understand why this is important, not just to toddlers, okay, even in adults. Now, this is a diagram which seems to summarize what happens as we age, okay? Now, you can see different parts of the brain, okay, and their functions. Okay, now, we can see that the brain is engaged or is necessary for memory, okay, and then cognitive functions. Now, let's look at memory. Memory is very important because if we have memory, which is part of cognitive function, okay, of the brain, if central to this function is memory, so if for any reason you have issues with memory, it means that, okay, we cannot interact, we cannot identify our friends, our relatives, we can't even engage in any form of transaction at all. We can't even engage in any activity. We are as good as non-existing at all. Okay, and that is why key to brain health is the cognitive function. And for cognitive function, we are looking at memory as one of the functions. Okay, and then you still have things like language control. Okay, and then different parts of the brain, are in charge or are responsible for these functions. Now, let's look at the brain. Now, from okay, so most brain actually changes, okay, to start to improve function. Now, again, you look at the frontal lobe. I don't know if you can see my arrow. This is the frontal lobe, okay, this is the temporal lobe, this is the parietal lobe, and then this.
Please, let's wait for him to rejoin back. I think the network over there. Okay, he's back.
Yeah, I don't
Welcome
know.
back,
The
sir.
network is terrible, honestly.
I think
Yeah,
maybe
can you see this now?
so you need to reshare
Can
the
you see my
screen.
screen?
You need to
Okay.
reshare the screen. Yes, sir.
Oh,
You need to share the screen again.
okay, all right. Let me share it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me do it.
Yes, sir.
Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No, sir. No,
Can you
sir.
see it?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Oh,
Yes, sir.
all right. Let me.
Take it out and share.
Okay, I'm coming. Can you see it now?
Yes, it's coming up now.
You are sharing.
It's coming up.
I think it's.
Yes, sir. We can see it now.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
now
Yes,
I
sir.
talked about, I was just trying to demonstrate different parts of the brain and their functions. Okay. Now from age 10, of course, the brain changes so rapidly, so as to meet up with some subset functions. Okay. Now I was telling you that this is, you can see my axis on the brain. Okay. We observe, functions, okay, like speech. Okay. Part of, function is you able to speak, coherently, so that whoever is listening to you would understand exactly what you're talking about, and also affects or controls some degree of our behavior. Okay, why some people are able, okay, to be smart. Let me just use that word loosely. Why people are able to be curious, okay, is because the frontal lobe is working effectively. Why some people are able to plan effectively, plan up a project and see successful conclusion is because the function of the frontal lobe is intact. Okay? And usually after age 10, then from age 13 to 15, the brain size and function increase, especially in that motor areas, the area in charge of movement, okay, movement of the hand, movement of the legs, okay. I've talked about speech and I've talked about like cognitive planning, executive functioning and all that. So the frontal lobe. Now, this part of the brain, which we call the temporal lobe, also helps again in memory. Okay, you can see the brain is very, very important. Okay, it also helps in memory. Okay, your ability to really understand what somebody is talking about. You're able to really understand some particular, some particular information being given to you. Very, very key. And then you have your parietal lobe. This is the parietal lobe. This parietal lobe helps in too many forms. One of the key functions is for you to understand your surrounding properly. Okay, your ability to understand what is going on around you. If someone gives you, like an object, you should be able to identify that object even without seeing it. By the shape of the object, you can feel the shape and say that this is what it is. Okay. Now, the police people have mastered. Sometimes they master the shape of the currency. Once they see 5 naira, they see 10 naira, they know what you are giving to them, even without seeing it, because they have somehow developed that particular function. If you are giving them 1,000, they will know that even without seeing it, they know it's 1,000, because that part of the brain has been so developed that they can even identify. So we call this thing sterognosia. Ability to really understand shapes, and the other functions. Okay, even for you to even recognize the faces of relatives, friends. Okay, so your parental lobe should be able to work, very well. Then you go to the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe helps you to visualize, okay, to see clearly, and then to interpret whatever it is you see. Then now at age 17, okay, the brain goes through a second growth spurt, and then the frontal lobe increases so much in size, and again gets to a lot of connections, what we call synaptic. The neurons begin to connect effectively well and gets to an adult size, okay, which is about 1,300 to 1,400. Hello?
You will need to share the screen again, sir.
Yes, I'm coming. No, I need to put an end to this thing. I'm not really.
I join it too. Sorry about that.
Give me some second. Let me just put an end to this thing.
ìkànnù wa ló mú síbẹ̀ mo ti get to mo ní ìkànnù wa ló mú síbẹ̀ wọ́n fẹ́ sọ lórí.
Can you see?
We can see your screen. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've used 3 networks already.
Oh, yeah.
You can imagine.
I
No, I
understand.
just hope this one will remain
Yes,
stable.
yes, MTN can be.
Not even MTN. I'm using my router.
Okay, okay, okay. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I feel it should be better.
Yes, sir. Yes, router is better.
Okay, so as I was saying, by the age of 18, the brain goes through what we call pruning. So there is, shedding of some weak connections within the brain. Okay, and the neurons, the number of neurons now reduce, okay, in number, and then that is when you now have reduction from 1,000 trillion to about 500 trillion neurons. Okay, now which is the same as the number of neurons you find in an 8-month-old baby. Okay, now looking at the brain lobes, I've talked about, somehow about different functions of the brain. Now, the frontal lobe, I talked about the frontal lobe, problem solving, organizing and planning, behavior, personality, and then for movement of your hand, your legs, okay, different parts of your body, your neck. And then this is the frontal lobe, by the way, okay? And then you have the parietal lobe. This is the parietal lobe. Now, we observe like your ability to smell, taste, touch, pain, and then to recognize people, to recognize your surrounding. I use aterognosis as an example where police people have mastered that art of being able to identify currencies even without seeing them. Okay. Then the occipital lobe. This is the occipital lobe. Okay. And then process of visual information, okay, shapes and sizes. And then you have the temporal lobe, where I talked about the speech, hearing, memory, and then helps in understanding languages. And then you have the brainstem. The brainstem, this is the brainstem. This part is the brainstem. Okay, you can see. For those who are doctors or nurses, okay, or in the medical field, the brainstem is very, very important to control some vital, processes that go on in our daily life. Without them, we can't survive. In fact, they're essential for life. Now, they are called brainstem because they seem to hold the brain, and then connect it to the spinal cord. So they help in breathing, maintaining consciousness, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and all that. And then you have your cerebellum. This is the cerebellum that helps in, maintaining equilibrium, okay? And then the tone of your hand and your legs, your feet, and also helps, in your posture and tries to modify and perfect one's movement. Now, what are the factors? Very important. What are factors that affect brain health early in life? Well, there are so many factors. In fact, you have interplay of these factors, okay, and can be classified into, lifestyle choices we make, medical conditions, okay. It could actually be social and cognitive factors, genetic and environmental factors. Now, what are the lifestyle, choices we make? For example, now a lot of people have taking to certain behavior just for certain reasons best known to them. Okay. Now, yeah, they want to do what is, perhaps readily, acceptable within a particular age group. Okay, especially in that early adulthood, that adolescent period, you see people taking to, into smoking, into drugs. Okay. These are lifestyle choices we make, that will hamper the brain health. Of course, taking excessive alcohol is quite damaging to the health. Cigarette smoking is damaging to the health and can lead to hypertension, then severe hypertension that will now culminate into, stroke. Okay. Now, some people have this habit of sedentary lifestyle, they don't want to do anything, okay? And then when that happens, they begin to add so much weight and then accumulate so much fat in their body, and then their lipid profile becomes so deranged, like cholesterol. You've heard of cholesterol. Anyway, you have, let me use the layman term, you have what we call the good cholesterol and then the bad cholesterol. The bad cholesterol is what we are even talking about, like what we call the low density lipoprotein. Some people eat fatty foods without restriction, okay, without thinking about the, the side effects of what they are doing, okay. These are choices we make. Now, you have medical conditions, okay. Medical conditions like hypertension, diabetes, this can affect our brain, okay. Like hypertension and diabetes, they are two medical conditions, okay, that have a very direct influence on the health of our brain. Both of them can form a powerful force to cause things like stroke, okay? They can cause some what we call neurodegenerative, conditions like dementia, specifically what we call vascular dementia. They bring about, increased tone of the vessels, okay? And then with deposition of cholesterol in the lining of the vessels, now they begin to reduce, okay, the space of the vessels, okay, and then increasing what we call vascular resistance, and then which will in turn lead to hypertension, and consequently, okay, leading to, stroke, okay. And then when stroke occurs, this part of the brain which I've actually described, part of this brain will be affected, and then it will start manifesting clinically as a problem. Is either the person is not able to talk, okay, that speech will be affected, okay, or the face will be deviated to one side, or either the arm or the leg, or the arm or the leg will be affected. And then, of course, we've seen people with stroke in the past, or some situations can even lead to, blindness, what we call cortical blindness. So lifestyle condition is very, very key if we have to consider, a healthy brain, okay? And then we look at other social and cognitive factors. I mean, having good, network of friends, colleagues, okay? I mean, it's quite important, and I would say is necessary if we have to maintain, brain health, because when you engage in any form of positive discussions with this set of people or interaction, you stand to gain a lot. And again, you're not idle. It's as if you keep stimulating the brain one way or the other, and different functions of the brain become even more active, because it's like when you do things over and over again, you get, you become a master of, that thing you're trying to do, okay? You become a master, of a particular process you really want to achieve, okay? So it's like someone who is trying to increase his level of understanding when reading. The only way to do that is interacting with people, okay, who read or who are in the academia, okay? And then you pick up books and read, often. And then by so doing, you become master of that art. And then it takes you to a completely new level. In fact, that is why, if you've experienced this, there are people who struggled so much when they were in primary school. By the time they got to secondary school, they became so, brilliant, and they begin to ask why. Because they have mastered this art, which they were, slowly, practicing over time, and they became master of that art. Okay, so it tells us that practice, according to, general belief, makes, perfection. And then, of course, some genetic factors too, okay? Some genetic factors, again, have role to play. In fact, in such situation, we don't really have any control over this. It's as if they are innate, they are inborn in us. Okay, for example, if one's parents are hypertensive or diabetes, so the likelihood of you having hypertension is high, or having diabetes is high. And then the good news there is that if you know that you have a family history of this thing. Like some people have family history of Alzheimer's. Some people have some family history of Parkinson's disease, even though in neurology, I mean, research has proven that more than 60% of people who have Parkinson's disease never even had any relatives with Parkinson's disease. Okay, the same goes for Alzheimer's disease as well. But again, genetic factors are very, very important. There are people who have, who have genetically high cholesterol level, okay? And then those people are prone to having stroke and other neurodegenerative conditions as well. And then again, environmental factors are factors that can affect our health. I mean, like air pollution, okay, which we have, in this country and other industrialized nations, okay, where they inhale, all sorts of gases, especially those who live very close to, petroleum stations, okay. These are people who live very close to, industrial areas. Those areas really, are, I would say the air there is actually saturated with some form of, toxins. Okay, it's just that in this part of the world, we've not been able to really assess or ascertain the degree of pollution. But again, whether we like it or not, these are issues, okay, of particular importance as far as brain health is concerned. Okay, so we need to explore more of these, air pollution, environmental toxins. Again, like the heavy metal toxins, okay, which we even encounter in our daily life, okay, for those who are into electronics, electronic engineers. I mean, they deal with a lot of panels, okay, they deal with mercury, arsenic, and all that, okay. So one way or the other, they are actually prone to all this. Those in some form of chemical manufacturing industries, okay, are prone to having all these. These are environmental factors, and they can affect the brain, okay. They can even lead to seizure disorders. They can even lead to some form of paralysis or paresis of some sort, weakness of the different parts of the body, okay. I mean, this is how bad this factor can actually be. So it's something we should pay more attention to. In fact, even aluminum toxicity has actually been found in our household. We use a lot of aluminum products, so, and we really don't have ways of assessing, the degree of the content that we take in, or consume. So these are things we should even look at, we should actually consider. Now, this is just a summary of what I've talked about, okay? So the lifestyle choices, diet, nutrition, physical inactivity, okay? You can see stress management. Again, some people they are workaholic. I probably want to say they don't even rest. They work from morning to night, in trying to achieve their goals. I mean, they should remember that the human body is like an engine, and then when that engine is not well taken care of or not well, lubricated, serviced, what results will be deadly. Okay, so I mean, we need to learn how to manage stress. Okay, when I talk about stress management, it also includes mental stress, emotional stress. Okay, and of course, substance abuse, which I've talked about. I mean, our youth these days are into drugs. Okay, they smoke all kinds of things apart from cigarette. They smoke marijuana. Okay, they take loud. They inhale all sorts of things. In fact, some even inhale these shoemaker gums, adhesives. Okay, that is how bad it can be. There are medical conditions which I've talked about, the medical conditions, okay. I've talked about hypertension, diabetes, okay. These are things that can actually affect it. Then cholesterol, okay, dyslipidemia, okay. These are things that can affect our brain health, okay. They can lead to stroke and other neurodegenerative conditions like dementia. And now you can see the brain in the center of this, and then you can see medical condition leading to stroke. Okay, this is just the food we eat, and then one way or the other. In fact, it's actually been found that some form of vascular, cerebrovascular disease, okay, or diseases have been linked to Alzheimer's. Okay, they have this what we call the microangiopathy. Okay, some penetrating vessels in the brain, gets involved. Okay, from long-term, non-disabling strokes. Okay, and then the blood vessels begin to clog, and these have been actually found not just in vascular dementia or dementia, Alzheimer's disease. Okay. Then I talked about cognitive and social engagement. Interaction is very, very important with family, friends, families, very, very key. And then, of course, I talked about family history. Okay. Family history is very, very key as well. And then genetic factors. Okay. I've talked about that. So, like this now, ApoE gene, which has been linked to Alzheimer's disease. Okay. And then family history of Alzheimer's disease, again, can increase someone's risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. Then you can see petrochemicals. Okay. Now, I've talked about these toxins and non-toxicity, which we can get even in our homes. Okay. Iron toxicity we can get within our homes. Okay. Can affect the brain. And then we talked about arsenic, mercury. Okay. And of course, I've talked about inhaling petrochemicals, like all sort of petrochemicals. Okay. This can, again, I still talked about air pollution. So you can see the link. You can see the link. They are all linked to advanced brain health. Now, these are the things I've actually explained. Of course, I've talked about diet, nutrition. So very, very important. We take what we call diet rich in vegetable, okay? Fruits, whole grain, and then omega-3. And then, of course, the Mediterranean diet in neurological disorders. Okay, so that is my Mediterranean diet. So it contains all these I've talked about. And then processed food, a lot of people take processed food, excessive sugar, red meat. So these contribute to chronic inflammation. What I mean inflammation, there are some changes within the body, okay, especially these vital organs, not just the brain, even the heart, okay, especially the vessels of the heart. Now, if I mean the vessel, that part is like a tube, that tube-like structure that takes blood to different parts of the body. And again, the one that take blood away from the body, okay, from the heart, okay, and then to different parts of the body. And the one that takes blood again to the heart now to be recirculated to the lungs and then recirculated to the rest of the body. So this chronic inflammation, they bring about, elaboration of some substances. And those substances, we call interleukins, for example, cytokines. They begin to destroy the lining of the vessels. And then when this happens, they result in inflammation of that vessel, swelling of that vessels, okay? And then subsequently, if it becomes sustained, it will now lead to neurodegenerative condition and even stroke as well. Then sleep quality. Some people don't sleep in trying to achieve whatever it is their dream is. No. For optimal function of the body, you need to sleep at least 7 to 9 hours a day. Okay. Now, just sleep shouldn't just be sleep. It should be consistent and restorative. And then, of course, you have to do what we call memory consolidation. That is what sleep does. Again, it helps remove waste from the body and then from the brain especially, and then improves overall cognitive function. Now, I've talked about stress. So how do you manage stress? So we are going into ways of controlling these factors. I've talked about stress management. Usually, I'm talking about stress management. Now, we use stress reduction techniques like meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, mindfulness, okay? Meditation. Well, let me even dwell on this a little bit. We meditate on, like, let us say we are Christians. I mean, of course, Muslims could be here. I don't know, whoever seems to be listening to you. We can meditate in various ways. When you meditate, it's as if you are trying to pull your mind away, from whatever it is disturbing you at that particular point in time. Okay, you're pulling it away. You are focusing on a healing process. Okay, that is what meditation is. You are thinking about something different. You can even think of something extraterrestrial. Okay, our imaginations are so wide. So these are ways of reducing our stress, and by so doing, you are forcing the body, the brain, to secrete some stress relieving substances like serotonin. Okay, sometimes even dopamine. Okay, these are stress reducing um substances, okay, that makes you relax, that makes you want to take charge, that makes you want to be in control of situation. Okay, so that is what meditation and mindfulness do to you. And then you have yoga, of course. These are Chinese therapy. It's been found to increase your level of concentration and focus. And then, of course, for those, hobbies too is something you do. Like for those who are into gameplay, you play games, with your friends, okay, Scrabble, chess. These are things that really, help you. For those who engage in other physical exercise and indoor um, exercises as well, can help. Okay, then social connection, which I've talked about, and then again, this all process protect the brain from damaging effects of chronic stress. So very, very important. Let's move that. Then, okay, another very important thing we should consider here is physical activity. Physical activity is very, very key. A lot of us downplay its importance. But again, I think by downplaying its importance, we are making a huge mistake, because it's been shown that exercise like brisk walking, jogging, swimming helps improve blood flow to the brain. Okay. And then what it does again, since you're doing these things regularly, you are strengthening your muscles. Okay. You are doing what we call, neural reconnection to the brain, meaning that there is a process called, neurogenesis, whereby you enhance, by what you're doing, new synaptic and neuronal connections. Okay, so it sharpens your mind. Your frontal lobe becomes even more powerful, and then you're beginning to do things. Your attention improves. Okay, and then not just that, the strength of your muscles even improve even the more. So it's as if you're taking charge of your overall well-being. Then, of course, it enhances your cognitive functions. So once your frontal lobe and different parts of your brain, are functioning very well, of course, you'll be able to maintain significant level of active neural process, active cognitive process. I mean, your attention is improved, you are able to multitask effectively, and you are able to deliver whatever responsibility you have in good time. For those who work, of course, most of us are working class people, and then perhaps we are self-employed. You need to, especially in a fast-paced world like ours, you need to do that. For whoever is not engaged in any form of physical exercise, I think should start having a rethink. It's very, very essential for healthy, brain. And then, of course, it delays brain aging and also delays neurodegenerative diseases, which I talked about, like stroke. Okay, no, not stroke is not a neurodegenerative, like Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, Alzheimer's dementia, okay, Lewy body dementia, all these diseases that are common, in old age. So it helps delay all of that. Okay, there are other forms of neurodegenerative diseases. I've talked about this. Then another thing that is very, very important to improve our brain health is cognitive stimulation. I said, when you do things repeatedly, you become a master of that art. You begin to take charge of that. In fact, you make yourself perfect in that. You become a master, like a professor in a particular discipline. That is what you become. You learn new skills. Okay, that's what you do. By reading, you stimulate yourself, you challenge the neurons. It's as if you are engaging the neurons in a form of, physical activity, just the way you're jogging, okay, that's the same way, it is the same impact it's having on the neuron or the neuronal cells or the neurons, okay? And then things like reading puzzle, and then trying to solve some puzzles, playing instruments, especially the ones you're not used to, and solving some complex problems help build you cognitively. And then it provides you with, mind or sharpness of the mind, okay? Again, we look at social engagement, which involves, creating, sustaining a strong, social ties, okay, with friends, family. Once in a while, you just leave that your comfort zone and go on visiting, go out. Feel free, taking fresh air, okay, deep breaths, get a new lease of life and meet people, okay? I don't mean the negative sense, but then meet people, engage them, okay, in some form of, purposeful, communication, healthy communication. That can actually be with even your spouse, your children, your friends, your family members all together, okay? Active participation in social functions help too. And then, of course, it helps reduces stress and then lower the risk of cognitive decline and other affective disorders like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and so many, other affective disorders. It helps you. Okay, social engagement, these are the advantages it brings, to your table. Hello, am I still audible?
I wish you the very best.
You are audible, sir. I will move
Okay.
the.
Okay, somebody is talking on the platform. Please,
Yes,
can
yes.
you mute that person?
I've muted.
All
Muted
right,
the person.
thank you. So, yeah, okay, all right. So I'll be done in a short while. In the next 10 minutes, the presentation should be over. Now, substance abuse, again, excessive alcohol consumption, smoking, illicit drugs, I've talked about it, has this direct neuronal, damage effect or damaging effect on the neurons, and then impairs cognitive functions, and then also increases the risk of neurological conditions. So this is just to summarize the medical conditions and then the health management, okay? Now look at the cardiovascular health. I've talked about hypertension, which is key, okay? And then not just hypertension, hypertensive heart diseases, okay? And then you have things like arrhythmias, okay, which can cause stroke. Diabetes again has been linked to stroke, which can stroke, not just stroke, to other neurodegenerative conditions as well, okay? Vascular dementia too has been linked to that, okay? Even to visual problems, okay? And then obesity. Obesity is in fact, obesity still remains, one of the huge problems we have, not just in the Western world, but even in the developing and underdeveloped countries, okay? It's unfortunate that while the Westerners are trying to do so much to reduce, this obesity prevalence, we seem to have taken over the baton, okay? A lot of people, there are things we have now that weren't common, like some 20 years back, okay? But now they are readily available, and then we have access to this kind of food. Now, coupled with the fact that some people love sedentary lifestyle, they don't want to do anything. Once they get to their houses, to their homes, they don't step an inch, they don't move an inch. So these are factors that increase the prevalence of obesity and then indirectly increasing the incidence and prevalence of medical conditions, particularly advanced brain functions. And then head injuries, okay, like from road traffic accident, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, then hearing loss, okay, not able to hear very well, which can even result from, anything from trauma, can result from Meniere's disease, can even result from, taking some form of medications, like some medications that are toxic to the ears, like you have the streptomycin, for example, and then all forms of aminoglycosides. Okay, and then you have chronic inflammation, which I've actually talked about. I mean, having like things as simple as arthritis, things as simple as chronic, peptic ulcer, so like other chronic inflammation, like connective tissue diseases like SLE, rheumatoid arthritis. These are things that can affect brain health and then should be tackled accordingly and be managed, just the way I've talked about. Now, I've talked about genetic factors. I've talked about environmental factors. Now, one thing I want to talk about the environmental is adverse childhood experience, okay, or experiences. In fact, it's been shown that children who did not have good support or good parental support, in childhood, turn out to become, depressed in life. Okay, they turn out to become, a little bit out of place. I'll use that word. Okay, thereby affecting their brain health. When I talk about brain health, of course, the brain, of course, is the mind. Okay, so it can predispose them to a whole lot of issues, including social vices. Okay, so it is very, very important that we identify these issues, not just in our children or in our relatives, even amongst our colleagues at work. Sometimes you begin to wonder why a particular colleague behaves certain way it does, or creating a form of, issues within that workspace. Okay, so you begin to wonder why that particular colleague of yours keeps having. Sometimes it is not so good for us to draw conclusion, in a haste. We should take our time to, even if possible, to make a small research. You will be so amazed as to what you would find. Rather than, this person behaves this way, this person is a nuisance, this person, in fact, this person, I've seen people say that without actually finding what if this person had advanced childhood experience, and maybe at that point, you are the only one that can help this person out. And then you may have actually succeeded in solving a particular problem for life. Okay, so it has been shown that this particular advanced childhood experience affects the brain structure and functions as well. Therefore, there is need for us, to study people and not to be too much in a hurry to pass judgment. We should first off try and know why a particular person or colleague or a child is behaving that particular way. Okay, so it could be something that is amenable to, treatment, and something as simple as advice. Okay, good and positive advice can change the story forever. Okay, I've talked about environmental toxins. Now, again, this is just what I've talked about, just a summary of what I've talked about. Strategies for maintaining healthy brain during aging. Okay, now we can see regular physical exercise, which I've talked about. Okay, I still went ahead to talk about your cognitive training. Okay, getting involved in games, interactions, with people. These are forms of cognitive and training, trying to learn new things, learn new skills, learn new languages. These are ways of, training your cognition, because all these are controlled by the brain. The brain is likened to a muscle. Okay, someone who wants to develop his muscle would, do that exercise regularly. You have to lift your dumbbell on regular basis. You need to hit the gym on regular basis. Okay, And then you also need to hit your treadmills on regular basis for you to develop it. That is the same way you are. If you are doing any form of cognitive training, you are as well increasing the brain's capacity to perform more functions. And it's so surprising, eh? And I think it's something quite encouraging to see how well people develop mentally when or after engaging in this kind of physical activity, cognitive training, and then managing stress, which I've talked about through meditation. Okay, I did say something about meditation. Okay, and mindfulness. Okay, I talked about that. Of course, I talked about yoga, Tai Chi, reflexology. Okay, these are ways we can actually relax and then keep stress at bay as well. And then social connection, I mean, connecting with people, friends, family, colleagues. Okay, it's a very good way or very good strategy to maintain healthy brain. And then, of course, balanced diet. I talked about the um the various forms of diet, the mind diet, the Mediterranean diet. Okay, specific diets, Mediterranean diet in neurological disease. Okay, and what we call the DASH diet. DASH diet is these are diets against hypertension. Okay, so this contains vegetable, fruits, grains. Okay, with significant, in significant proportion. Very, very important to get these things, and then treating brain diseases. Now, people who have stroke or who have certain risk factors, okay, like if you know that you are diabetic, you are hypertensive, okay, and your cholesterol is high, why not go to the doctor? You don't have to wait until you develop any form of complication resulting from this diseases I've mentioned. You don't have to. So there's something we call primary prevention. So when you go for routine clinical check and then your blood pressure is high, you commence your blood pressure medication. Okay, you have various forms of blood pressure medication, antihypertensives, we call them. Okay, depending on what your clinician is trying to achieve. Right now, we've even gone beyond controlling hypertension. We've gone beyond that. Now, what we are looking at is this antihypertensive going to prevent you from developing other, some clinical complications? Okay, like, is it going to affect your heart? Is it going to? So there are factors that, apart from the hypertension. Okay, there are still factors we consider before we give you specific antihypertensives. We've gone beyond just ordinary hypertension control. Okay, and then we look at diabetes. We look at dyslipidemia, that is high cholesterol, level. Okay, that needs to be well managed and controlled. So by doing all that, of course, you're keeping brain aging, you're keeping brain disorders, at arm's length. Okay, you're keeping them away from you. Okay, so it's as if the brain is in fact, it's as if the brain is yes, of course, it's an organ of the body, but again, the brain, in fact, the brain gives us that characteristics for which we are known. I mean, if you are a Bosse, or you are Tunde, or you are Nnamdi, or you are Ike, or you are Ifeanyi, or you are Shegun, or you are Bala, or Mohammed, okay? Your brain is what identifies you as that person you are, because your brain gives you, okay, your thought process, your speech, your language. That is who you are. Your brain is not the heart that identifies. Not even your feet. It is your brain that makes you who you are. It's your brain that gives you your personality. Therefore, that which gives you who you are, who gives you your personality, you should take care of it. Your brain is your mind. Your brain is you. Now, this is very, very important. I want us to know the myths and facts, because a lot of us may have been thinking about this. The myths and facts about brain health. I want us to just talk about some. In fact, they are quite much, but again, I just brought out these very, very key ones. I'll take them one after the other. Some people believe that brain plasticity stops in childhood. You mean what this is saying is, some people believe that you don't acquire, in fact, you are not able to acquire more neural connections once you get to an adult stage or a particular phase in life. It is not true. Now, the fact is, the brain has the ability to adapt to changes depending on the situation throughout life. It means that you can learn. This is called neuroplasticity. You can learn anything. You can learn at any stage of life. If you want to, you can learn new skills, new language throughout life. You may not be as sharp as you used to. I mean, your response time might be slow, may not be as fast as you would have when you're much younger, but again, it's something you can still learn. Now, there is this myth that says, myth number 2, that humans use only 10% of their brain. That is why they have a lot of limitations. That fact is wrong. The brain is an incredibly active organ. In fact, we use more than 90% of our brain. In fact, there is this film I watched. I saw this film like 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. And what captivated me about this movie was because of this. They said humans use less than 20% of their brain. And then if they use as much as 80% of their brain, it means that they can even see God. They can even predict what will happen in the future. There is nothing like that. Those things are myths. Okay? Those things are myths. The humans use that, and that is why if anything happens to any part of your brain, for example, stroke, which brings or results in focal neurological deficit, you will know that in fact, clinically you will manifest that deficit. For example, if stroke occurs in a part of the brain that controls your left hand or your left leg, of course, that place will just become deficient in function. You will not be able to use that particular part of the body effectively. If the brain does not use as much as that, why would the person come down with such deficits? What I'm trying to say here is that the more than 90% of the brain is used. It is not. So this is a fact I want you to know. Now, people believe that another myth is that significant memory loss is part of normal aging. No. Yes, sometimes memory loss can occur. We call it senile dementia. Okay. But again, their significant memory and begin to display some significant memory loss. It is that person needs to consult with one is doctor and more specifically neurologist, so as to find out what the cause is, whether the memory loss can be reversed or is something that would progress, over time. Now, if a patient begins to forget the names of his family members, and then it becomes repeat, and then it becomes sustained, it becomes more continuous, and it becomes like, you keep forgetting and not able to recognize faces of family members. You should take that seriously. Again, if patient or someone begins to ask a particular question repeatedly after you have provided an answer, it is no longer aging. No, it is no longer normal aging. That person needs to be reviewed and assessed fully. Now, people also believe that alcohol damages the brain cells. That fact is wrong. Now, this moderate alcohol intake does not. I am not encouraging people to start drinking alcohol. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's a myth that needs to be corrected. Okay? Now, if your faith prevents you or deters you from taking alcohol, that's okay. I mean, that's your faith. That's what you want to do. But again, I want us to know that moderate alcohol intake, taking less than 3 units, okay, of alcohol in a week, for example, 3, is not bad for a man, for men, and for women, 2 units. I mean, it's not bad in a week, okay. But what the problem is, the fact is that moderate alcohol intake does not, and rather regular and excessive alcohol can damage the brain cell. So if you take alcohol in significant quantity, you take like 2 bottles, for example, every day, and someone takes things like gin, whiskey, no, it will damage the brain cells. I mean, patient will develop, problems with movement, vision, okay, even memory, and balance issues can even ensue. Okay, so these are the things we should actually consider. And then again, another myth is that classical music makes babies smarter. That fact, in isolation is not true. Okay, or that myth is a myth anyway. But the fact remains that music can have various benefits, okay, to the brain, okay, and to individual. But direct intelligence enhancement is not one of them, okay. But then, of course, playing classical music with regular exercises, okay, and then connections with people, okay, managing stress and adequate sleep, all this put together would ensure very good intelligence enhancement. Now, this brings us to the conclusion of today's lecture, okay? It's a take-home message, okay? Now, one of it is maintaining optimal brain health is very key, okay, to optimal health, not just the brain health, but generally, okay? Avoiding lifestyle practices that affect brain health is extremely important, like I've actually said, okay? Now, central to neurological disorder is the combination of multiple factors, including environmental, genetic, lifestyle practices, and medical factors, among others. So, of course, these are the things that can affect, our brain health. So we should try as much as possible to put these things under control, especially lifestyle practices and then medical factors. Treat hypertension, treat diabetes, treat any heart problems, okay? You are very close to maintaining a very good brain health, okay, if you keep to these practices. Now, major unconscious physical and mental exercise are also central to maintaining brain health. Thank you for listening, and God bless. So if you have any questions, it's the time for it.
Thank you very much for the well-delivered lecture. And one good thing with this is that immediately this is being recorded in the YouTube. We can always go back to listening again and again, because I'm sure all of us, even worse doctors, when it comes to the brain, we are always afraid, because I remember I do this MB, first MB, you are always like, hey, neurology. It's always a big topic. But he has been able to break it down for us in a simple way. At least we can see how the brain develops. We can see things that affect how day-to-day lifestyle choices affect our brain, and things that we can do, including meditation, including social connections, including treating medical conditions when they are found, and then doing a lot of things to maintain our brain net. And so I believe we have all learned a lot this evening, and our time is fast spent, but we give opportunity for questions. So if you want to ask questions, you can unmute and ask, or you can type, or you can raise electronic hand for me to identify you. We can do that within the next 10 minutes so that we can round off. Thank you very much for your patience, and I believe that it's been worthwhile. Thank you very much. So we can start asking our questions. I know that here we have doctors in here, including doctors in every field, in mental health, in family medicine. So I believe some of us may want to contribute in our area of influence, in an area of practice, to want to speak to some of the things that I mentioned today, like adverse childhood experiences, like so many other that neurodevelopmental disorders. So we may want to contribute. This floor is open. Sam, Mas. I wouldn't want to call names, but we can unmute and speak so that we can gain knowledge. All we ought to do want to bring health for all ages, from childhood to elderly. And I can see that he has really make effort to touch every area. So the floor is open. Has anybody typed? Okay. Yes. Someone has typed that to talk more about mindfulness. Mindfulness. That is what is mindfulness?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Please, I think maybe while you answer that, someone will.
Okay, someone said, I can't see the message. Let me see.
It's talking that.
Okay.
I think you
Okay, so he
mentioned
said, what is mindfulness? How is it done? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I talked about that. Mindfulness and meditation are almost, similar. Okay. Mindfulness is when you try to focus all your mental energy, to a particular direction. Okay. Now you can focus it depending on what you believe in. Okay. Some people use Tai Chi, yoga, okay, for example, whereby you adopt a particular position and then you inhale deeply and then you place your focus on whatever you feel that is your bias, that whatever interests you, and then you sustain that in a particular position for a period of time. Maybe you can do that for like 30 minutes to 1 hour. Okay, yoga, Tai Chi is one of them. In yoga, you adopt a particular position. You've seen, like, you're praying, like you've seen the Buddhists, do. Okay, so I don't know if for those who are interested in football, if you know this, I don't know if you know this Manchester City player, Erling Haaland. If he scores a goal, he adopts one particular position. Okay, so that is that position. You adopt that position, and then you focus on a particular, pain that interests you, and then you sustain that for a period of time. And then by the time you do that, and you do that on regular basis, of course, you see the result.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. There's another question about sleep. That how can you improve sleep outside use of sleeping pills?
Yeah, that's a very good question, honestly. In fact, I see a lot of people come to my clinic because of insomnia and other sleep disorders. Okay. Of course, there are ways. Sleep disorders come in various ways, but most of the cases I manage, okay, are insomnia. Okay, most of the cases are within this insomnia, sleep disorder. Insomnia is sleep disorder, whereby they lack that ability. Is either they lack the ability to initiate sleep or to sustain sleep even when they sleep. So some people, when they sleep, maybe 1-2 hours or 3 hours, they wake up and then they will never sleep until daybreak. They won't sleep until daybreak. So these are various forms of sleep disorders with me. So there are other forms of sleep disorders anyway. Okay. But this is the one I'm going to talk about right now, the insomnia, which seems to be common, okay, amongst us. Okay, so, and especially in the elderly. Okay, so we don't usually encourage people, okay, to take medication. So if you come, what I do is I would like to get your history. Okay, why did you even develop it in the first place? It could actually be your lifestyle, changes. It could actually be that is what for example, some people are used to waking up in the middle of the night intentionally to do one thing or the other. That is when they are sleeping, they remember they have a project they're supposed to complete. They have an assignment they need to deliver, by a certain time, okay. The night is not the best time for you to do all of that. Night, in fact, the way the body is programmed in such a way that night is meant for sleep. If for any reason you repeatedly distort that normal process, okay, the body is going to respond. And one of the ways the body will respond is to reset the sleep center. And once the sleep center is reset, then the problem comes in. So again, which people who have experienced jet lag, that is the same thing they experience sometimes, okay, because you are trying to confuse the brain center, okay. So that is what brings about insomnia. Sometimes it cannot even be linked to anything. It just happened. So one of the ways we do that is at least for 1 month, we give them sleep medications, okay. Benzodiazepam is what we give them. But if insomnia is a result of other factors like, pain, and then mental and affective disorders, we treat the cause of the insomnia rather than, the insomnia in itself. So you need to get the history. So treatment of insomnia is multifactorial, okay? But key to it is, how do you sleep? Now, you take these medications for a period of 1 month, another period of 1 month. I would advise you, and that is what is generally practiced all over the world, okay? I will advise you to develop a proper sleep hygiene. And one of the ways to do that is you identify things in your room that can prevent you from sleeping well. For example, you want to sleep and your television is on and your phone is beeping, disturbing you. Okay, how are you going to sleep? So you have to make your room sleep friendly. First of all, you switch up the light, which again on its own initiates sleep and stimulates sleep. Okay, and after doing that, you lie down, and then if you're the type that sleeps with AC, I mean, you can go on and do that. Okay, if you're the type that sleeps well with certain kind of music, okay, you can do that. Okay, whatever it is that would, positively influence your healthy sleep pattern, you go ahead and do that. But again, if you're trying to sleep and 10 minutes you're still awake, you have to stand up and try to initiate sleep. So one of the ways of doing that is what I tell my clients is you look for something that is uninteresting. Okay, for example, you get like Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard newspaper is so verbose. By the time you read one column, you're already tired because of the kind of big grammar they speak. Okay, these are this kind of things you want to do. Get Vanguard newspaper and try to read. By the time you read one of the columns, you start feeling asleep, and then you go back, and then you see if you can catch some sleep, and then you start the cycle all over again. So you do that on daily basis, okay? And then until you are able to sleep. While doing that, make sure you have something like a light source, okay, very close to you. In case you feel pressed, you can just on your own wake up and go, and then you go back to it again. By the time you do that, okay, what you are doing, you're trying to restore the natural sleep mechanism, okay? You want to reset your sleep center to how it should be, so that normal state it should be. That's what you're trying to do. So and of course it has worked. So, and again, what again can help you is this meditation and mindfulness has also helped some people. Okay, I've also helped some people in achieving good sleep over time, not pills. In fact, the use of pill for sustained period of time is discouraged. Yes. All right. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much, sir. I think yes, sir. You've answered. I think we need to just wrap up. There are 2 other follow-up questions about afternoon lapping, and also whether supplement use can replace vegetables and fruits. I think you just pick the
do I need to?
can replace
that particular one
need
can
for fruit
supplement
and
tablets?
vegetables.
Yeah, can supplement tablets substitute for fruits and vegetables as they are getting more expensive? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, will you advise afternoon to gain? Will you advise afternoon nap? I think that's what. Will you advise
Yes, sir.
afternoon napping
Afternoon
to gain
napping.
more night sleep? Okay,
Yes.
avoid day napping. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got that now. Okay, so does night duty duty effect? That's what I just said now. Okay, fine. Let me just take the two at once. Now, again, usually for those who are suffering
Yes,
from
something about
insomnia, honestly,
night
yes, sleeping during the day is really discouraged. Yeah. In fact, that is one of the treatment guidelines, okay, for insomnia. Okay. Once you suffer, try and
Sorry, I think we lost your voice there. Hello, sir. Hello. I think his network is going off. He also done for him. Okay. Let's get back. Maybe we just jump ahead. Maybe just jump back with phone alone, just to talk, just answer. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Uh, hello, sir. Okay, maybe he has I think he has tried to answer the question about the sleep. The night duty call, well, that's the thing that affects a lot of us health workers. But the thing is that even when you do that, you still have to find a way to reset yourself, organize yourself to have a good sleep, and also, well, they compensating for the sleep during the afternoon. Maybe what you may have to do when you have, maybe someone is on 1 week night duty, that may have to find time to sleep during the day. So it's always a way of managing yourself. Avoid use of stimulants or sleep medicine, like I have said, so that you're able to manage yourself. But just make sure that you make time for your body to restore to normal function as much as possible. And also try to make sure that you don't take too much of this into yourself. A lot of people, in a bid to get more money, they will collect people's night duty. They work their own normal day, collect other people's night duty, combine everything together. They work day, they work night, they just continue running like that. We have to minimize how much of this we do so that we're able to maintain a good sleep and then be able to maintain our body. Like he said, our body is like an engine. You can't be running an engine during the day and in the night and not accept it to break down. So with this, I think we have had a good time. So we are going to round up at this point. I want to appreciate all of us that have joined and have waited this far. And I want to also, on our behalf, appreciate our lecturer who has come pro bono to give us this lecture this evening. And I believe you have all learned a lot. At this point, we want to call it a day. Thank you very much for joining. This kind of lectures happens every monthly, usually um, last Sunday or maybe second to the last Sunday in the month, where we bring up topics that are relevant. You can check the YouTube link that was in the advert, where you can see previous lecture that have been done about hypertension. This is done by a forum called the Hypertension Awareness Forum, which is focused on educating the public on hypertension and also providing support for people that need one thing or the other to manage their hypertension. So thank you very much for coming. I will want to end the call now. Thank you very much. See you next time. Thank you very much, Mr. Fashion.
yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.